Hello students, welcome you again in our class. Today we will study about NCERT exercise of chapter friction for class 8. This is part 2. Students, in first part we have discussed from question number 1 to question number 5, and in this part we are going to discuss question number 6 to question number 10. So let's start. Students, this is question number 6. Explain why sportsmen use shoes with spikes. Students, we have studied in our class during advantages of friction and how we can increase friction. That a sportsman use shoes with spikes. See the reason. Sportsmen use shoes with spikes because spikes are pointed structures like nails which get into the ground and increase the friction between shoes and the surface. So the shoes with spikes do not slip while the sportsmen run and play. So students, shoes with spikes helps the sportsman in better grip of their shoes with ground. Next, question number 7. Iqbal has to push a lighter box and Seema has to push a similar but heavier box on the same floor. Who will have to apply a larger force and why? Students, as we have discussed that force of friction depends upon the force pressing the two surfaces in contact. So, a heavy object produces more friction as it is pressed harder against the floor by its weight. Weight is also a type of force, and this force presses the object with the surface or towards the surface on which it is kept. So Seema will have to apply a larger force because of heavier box. So students, I hope it is clear the answer. Now question number 8. Explain why sliding friction is less than static friction. Students, during the study of types of friction, we have studied that sliding friction is less than static friction. It is because you can see the answer. The sliding friction is less than static friction because when an object starts sliding, the irregularities on its surface get less time to interlock into the irregularities on the other surface in contact. Students, these irregularities in contact surfaces, between contact surfaces, are the main cause of friction, main cause of roughness, which we have studied earlier in case cause of friction. And irregularities, as you can say, gets less time to interlock into each other if the object is already in sliding motion, already slides over the other surface. So students, this was the explanation why sliding friction is less than a static friction. Now see question number 9. Give examples to show that friction is both a friend and a foe. Friend means it is good for us and foe means it is bad for us. So let us see. Friction is both a friend and a foe as it has both advantages and disadvantages. Some examples are given below. Let us see. Friction as a friend. Point number 1 or example number 1. It helps us to walk without slipping. Next example, it helps a vehicle to move without skidding. These all we have discussed during the class during study of advantages of friction. See the example number 3. It allows us to grip and catch any object, that is to hold an object or to lift an object. Friction helps us with our hands, especially with our hands. Now, next example, it helps to minimize the speed or to stop any moving object. We can apply brakes or any way we can stop an moving an object in motion. We can stop a motion due to friction or with the help of friction. Next example, you can see it helps us to write. There are many more advantages, and you can give examples any advantage of friction in this section to prove that friction as a friend, that is friction as a good. Now see how friction is for. See, example number 1, it causes wear and tear in surfaces in contact. As we have discussed in disadvantages of friction, that friction causes wear, rubbing out of surfaces in contact, that is wear and tear in surfaces in contact. Second example, it causes damage to the parts of machines and tools. This is also related with first example, that is wearing and tearing out due to rubbing and due to friction. Third example, it reduces the speed of moving objects, so more force is required. Students, due to friction, to continue a motion or to move a body, you have to apply extra force so that friction can be overcome. Friction needs or friction requires additional force to move a body. Next, it produces heat which can cause fire. Students, during movement, during sliding or any type of movement, friction changes the energy into heat, some parts of energy into heat, and this heat can cause fire. This is a common example that moving parts of machine sometimes become so hot, this heat damages the machine parts or can cause fire. So students, these were the examples which prove that friction as a foe, and by this way we can explain the answer. Now see the last question, question number 10. Explain why objects moving in fluids must have special shapes. Students, as we have discussed the ways by which we can reduce fluid friction, we can minimize fluid friction, and see the answer. The objects moving in fluids must have a special shape. This is your question. Why? Because to decrease the fluid friction acting on them, the body with a special shape called streamlined shape moves through fluid easily with less fluid friction. That is, a special shape called streamlined shape helps the objects move easily with less fluid friction through the fluid. So a special shape is given to the object. Now students, I hope this is clear about the exercise question answers, and going to end the class today. Students, in next class we will with a new topic, new chapter. So goodbye.